Hi there, my name is Janaea, and in this video, I will be sharing information on how you can lighten and regulate your monthly cycle naturally. So, the first thing I'm going to do is I will share a little bit about my experience with my monthly cycle, and then I will go into the tips and information that I've accumulated over the years that have helped me regulate and lighten my cycle. I would like to start by just letting you all know that at the beginning of my womanhood journey, my cycles were always irregular and they were uncomfortable and they were heavy, especially during the first few days. I would have to change my pad or my tampon like every 2 hours, and my monthly cycle would last 7 days and it would occur every 21 days. So that occurred for quite some time because my cycle started when I was 12. I am now 34, and I did not begin to learn tips and tricks and things like that until maybe like 7 years ago. So I now have a light, gentle cycle that only lasts 2 to 3 days, and it occurs every 26 days. So the length in between my cycles has increased, and the cycle itself is very light now instead of heavy. Okay. So now I will go ahead and get into the tips of things that you can do to assist with making your cycle regular and lighter. Well, if you are someone who is experiencing issues with a heavy monthly cycle, irregular, or it's painful and uncomfortable, there's going to be a few things that you may want to consider. The first thing that you may want to consider is if you are currently under a lot of stress, because stress can make the body malfunction in many different ways. Stress is not good for your body. So if you do find that you are under a great deal of stress, the best thing you can do is find ways of coping with the stress, finding healthy, natural ways of coping with your stress, and also eliminating certain things or people from your life if you're able to get rid of the stress itself. Okay, you're gonna probably have to make some changes in order to eliminate the stress, and it's actually a good thing because who wants to walk around stressed all day every day? I don't. I've been there before and I would not go back to it. So the next thing that you are going to want to consider is, what does your diet look like? Now, diet is going to play a key role in this, simply because your diet can also, just as well as stress, it can affect your body in many ways as well. So one thing that you want to take a look at when it comes to diet is, are you consuming a lot of carbohydrates and processed sugars? Because that can affect your cycle. And also, what kind of foods are you taking in? Like, are you taking in a lot of processed foods? Because the processed foods, they contain a lot of chemicals that are, unnatural for the body. So the body is going to have a reaction to those things, to the preservatives, the additives, and whatever else they are sprinkling into the processed foods. So if you're consuming a lot of processed foods, I would highly suggest that you cut down on them or cut them out completely. And even if you just do it for a short amount of time, try it and see how your body responds to it. Also, when it comes to, if you're consuming a lot of processed sugars, which is the white bleached sugar, there are alternatives for that. You can replace those sugars with raw cane sugar and also things like agave, honey. There are many different natural alternatives for sweeteners. And when it comes to your diet and having a balanced diet, what you can do is just make sure that you are getting more fresh fruits and veggies into your diet. The next thing that you would want to consider is if you have some unresolved trauma or negative emotions. And the reason why I say that is because as women, we tend to store our negative emotions and our traumas in our womb space. Even if it's not something that specifically happened to our womb space, for some reason we store those emotions in that area, which can also affect your cycle. So, and I know that there are people who have had like sexual trauma and things like that, and that can play a role as well. So, if you are someone who has a lot of unresolved negative emotions and also trauma that may be stored in the womb space, there are different things that you can do it, or different tools you can use to assist you with that. So one thing that I have worked with, which has been helpful with releasing negative emotions stored in the womb space, is yoni eggs. So what these are crystal eggs. These are healing crystals. This is a rose quartz. This is a black obsidian. And what you do is you insert them into your womb space, not while you're on your cycle, but you insert this into your womb space, and it is to assist you with healing. Now, each different crystal has a different healing property. You can do your own research on that if you are interested, but I did find these to be very helpful in like emotional healing and womb healing. The other thing that I found to be helpful for womb healing is yoni steams. Now, I used to go to a local place to get my yoni steams done. However, to save money, I actually do them myself. And what a yoni steam is, it is a vaginal steam, and they use herbs to steam the vagina. You can do your own research on that, but it is very relaxing. I found it to also be just very helpful with healing, and overall it's just a good experience. There are like meditations on YouTube for like healing the womb space. There's like womb healing meditations and also like sacral healing meditation. And you can also do pelvic massages as well. And outside of that, just do what you can to connect with your body on a deeper level, because whenever you begin to connect with your body on a deeper level, you begin to sense what your body is asking you for or what it's needing. All right, so now I am going to get into different supplements that you can use that may be helpful for regulating and lightening your cycle. So the very first thing that I would like to mention, I'm only mentioning this first is because before I even got into like the healing and regulating my cycle at all, I had started a long time ago. I started drinking lemon water every day. And as I was drinking lemon water every day, I noticed that when my cycle had came after I began drinking it, I had noticed that it had started to like lengthen my cycle, meaning like it was no longer occurring every 21 days. It started to occur, like it became more regular. is what I'll say. Now, as far as like the bleeding goes, it did not cause it to lighten, but I was happy with the fact that it lengthened the time in between the cycle. Also, right after I had my son, I noticed that whenever I would get my cycle, on the first day, it would feel like my pelvic area would feel really heavy, as if like my uterus weighed 20 pounds. And there was like a lot of pressure in that area. So one thing that I came across was magnesium. So I started taking a liquid ionic magnesium. I actually don't use it anymore because after this year, when my last bottle ran out, I ended up discovering Celtic Sea Salt, which is a lot more cost effective. The magnesium I used to buy was like $17, whereas this Celtic Sea Salt, which is also magnesium, this is only like $9 at Whole Foods. And this is gonna last me a lot longer than the little bottles that I used to use. So with the Celtic Sea Salt, it has about 3 forms of magnesium in it. It also has like 82 trace minerals in it. And I believe it also contains calcium and many other minerals. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but from this, the main things that I know of that you get from here is magnesium and calcium. So with the Celtic Sea Salt, all you do is take 1 grain of this, you put it under your tongue or like in the side of your cheek, and allow it to dissolve. And as it dissolves, it gets absorbed into your bloodstream. And as you can see, these granules of salt are a lot bigger than, the salt that you would use on your food. But this stuff works really well. And I say that because now whenever my cycle starts, before I used to feel sluggish at the beginning of my cycle. And I used to feel like I just wanted to like lay around and rest all day. And like I didn't have much energy. Sometimes I would get a mild headache. And I noticed that whenever I would take this Celtic Sea Salt, I no longer had the headaches anymore. And I actually feel very energized on the first day of my cycle. And sorry, I wanted to go back to when I first mentioned the liquid magnesium that I was taking. So I began to take that liquid magnesium because I saw that it was a muscle relaxer. Now, magnesium is used for other things as well, but that was the main thing that I had used it for whenever I was having like the discomfort in my pelvic area at the beginning of my cycle. So when I was using the liquid magnesium, it did remove the heaviness that I would feel in my pelvic area. But now that I am taking this Celtic Sea Salt, it does like the same thing. So, I mean, it's all magnesium. It relaxes the muscle. Your uterus is a muscle and it helps it to relax. So the next thing that I will mention is, although I've already talked about the diet, I wanted to mention that when I changed my diet, I actually became vegan 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. And when I became vegan, I noticed that my cycle had shortened down to 5 days in length. And at the beginning of my vegan journey, I was consuming a lot of sugar and carbs. So the heaviness of my cycle was still the same. However, it did shorten in length. So what I will say is, I'm not telling anybody at all to be vegan. Do what works for you. But what I'm trying to say is, like, the carbs and the sugar, they do play a role in affecting your cycle. And as of lately, my cycle had gotten a lot lighter when I removed like high carbs and sugar from my diet. So now what I use for my carbs is like gluten-free pastas and like protein, like chickpeas and beans and stuff like that. But I am somebody who absolutely loves pasta. I love the way it tastes. However, I had to remove like that and like wheat from my diet because I noticed that I had a slight sensitivity to the gluten. So when I removed that, I didn't even initially do it for my cycle. I did it more so because my body was not responding to it in the best way. But the effect that it had was it helped me to lighten my cycle. Okay, so after removing the carbs and sugar from my diet, I also noticed that I do not get bloated anymore. And I used to get bloated every month, even when I wasn't on my cycle. When I was consuming a lot of carbs, I would be like just bloated for no reason at all. So another thing that I do want to include about the diet is whenever you, besides having, more of a balanced diet, also wanted to include like pay attention to the meats and the fish that you are taking in. And what I mean by that is you may want to consider purchasing meats that do not have any hormones or antibiotics in them, because if they do, you are also taking in those hormones and antibiotics that they put inside of the animal, and that does affect your body's hormones. So be aware of that. And also, along with the fish, you might want to consider fish that have wild caught written on the label. If it's not wild caught, that means it is being raised in a farm. And if it says farm raised, you may want to steer away from that, because those farm raised fish and shrimp, or whatever you want to call it, they typically are receiving a lot of antibiotics because of the environment that they are being raised in. So moving forward, back to the supplements. Now, if you are already getting a lot of iron in your diet from your food and calcium, then you really don't have to, and vitamin C, you really don't have to worry about taking an actual supplement for those vitamins. However, if you know that you're not getting enough of those things in your actual diet, you would probably want to consider purchasing them as a supplement. The next thing that I have that I actually use every month for my cycle is red raspberry leaf tea. And you can find this, I would imagine, at most grocery stores. This stuff is really good for your menstrual cycles. It says menstrual cramps and pregnancy support. But yeah, it gives you some of that. You may also want to consider going with pads or tampons that have organic cotton. And the reason why I say that is because the pads and tampons that are not organic, they typically have like chlorine and other chemicals in them, which you really don't want on or in your lady parts, because your body may be having a negative reaction to that as well. And a brand that I started using at least like 5 years ago, it is called the L brand. However, you can pick whatever brand you choose of organic pads and tampons. But the reason why I chose that brand was because of the price. I get a bag of pads for, I want to say $8 or $9, and you get 42 of them in the pack. Basically, you get more for your money, which is why I chose that brand, and it's organic. You can't beat that. Okay, there's actually a few more things that I want to add to the list. So The last few things that I'm going to mention is while you're on your cycle, it is a great idea to rest as much as you can. And when I say rest, I don't mean like you have to lay around all day. I know people have things to do, like go to work, but just listen to your body. If you do need to sit down for a while or lay down for a while, do that. And also, like, do not lift heavy things while you're on your cycle. Like, just allow your body to rest, and also try to avoid intense workouts. When I am on my cycle now, I don't do intense workouts. Sometimes I don't work out at all, but if I do, I make sure it's something light and gentle like yoga or something like that. And that will also help with like the bleeding not being so heavy. And you want to make sure that you are drinking plenty of water, because as you bleed, you are losing water because blood is made of water, and you're also losing like the minerals and nutrients because you're bleeding as well. So you just want to replenish that. And the very last thing, the very last tip that I have for you is if you are consuming a lot of dairy, you may want to either cut down on it or cut it out completely, simply because dairy does cause inflammation, and it also does have an effect on your hormones, simply because it is coming from a mommy cow, and all of the mommy cow's hormones are in the milk. You can do what you want, but technically that milk is for a baby cow, just like a mother's breast milk is only for her baby. But that is all of the tips that I have. And also, for those of you who do not know, I am a Beyond Quantum Healing practitioner. And what I do is I assist people who are on a healing journey, and I assist them by guiding them to heal themselves. And this process is done through a form of hypnosis. So if you are interested, I will include my information in the description box below. And I hope that you all have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for watching.